Welcome to Mindshifters Radio. Today is, the 4th of, or pardon me, the 18th of April. Already, time flies. So, welcome. We are in process of unfolding the Power Person Worksheet from the Codependence to Interdependence workshop. And I'll ask people if you have any questions or comments, if you'd keep those questions and comments to the Power Person Worksheet, the top we're working with, what we're working to do. This is a tool that we developed a couple of years ago during an intensive, a Codependence to Interdependence Communication Practicum. And it was one we restricted to those who'd participated in that workshop, and we haven't publicly published it until now. And what we're doing is a series of radio shows where we're covering that what is now turning out to be, I think it's a 17-page worksheet, where we're really working on unraveling at the very deepest roots the power person dynamic. So if you'd keep your questions or thoughts on track with that, if you have a comment, of course, you can put it in the comment section. If you were notified of by a text and you hit the link in that text, that will take you to a place where you can listen to the show, but you can't interact. If you look up above, whether you've got an Android or an iPhone, if you click one of those, you can download the app, and then you can fully interact with the show. So delighted that you're here. And I'm going to go to step 16. I've done some editing and moving back and forth, so I've kind of lost track. We may double up on a couple of things. My apology if we do that, but I've been refining this worksheet as we've gone on. I've actually added 3 pages to it since we started a few days ago to create this series of radio shows, so that anytime anybody wants to work with the Power Person Worksheet, we'll be able to hand them these shows and say, okay, here are the directions. Here's what we're inviting you to do. And of course, if you have any insights, any additions, any questions about the process, please jump in. That's what we're here to integrate. I always learn from everyone's questions and deeply appreciate the participation and questions when they come. So step 16, power person behaviors. We're going to look at what category are those behaviors usually in, and they pretty much involve control, avoidance, distraction, or deflection. And so we're going to look at that range of games that people play, and where I had spoken before about distract, project being 2 separate things, they're actually one and the same. So we're going to combine those into one. So the idea here is to identify any fear or hostility-based messages that your power person has given you or given to others, or that you've given to yourself in order to achieve the goal that the power person has. So if the power person's goal was to be in control, that might look like forcing or threatening people to be silent. You know, the threat might look like, I'll leave you if, and then comes the attempt to control. The attempt to avoid looks like, don't make me look. You know, my favorite example of that one, if you watch the film It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, you'll see the gentleman that's there to, true story, that's there to interview Mr. Rogers for a special feature, actually a small 400-word American Heroes feature in Esquire magazine. You'll see the scene where this interviewer, who didn't want to be in there in the first place, when Mr. Rogers starts to steer him toward his own unconscious dynamics, I mean, he literally gets up and leaves the room. So that would be this avoidance. And you can bet that for that gentleman, if you watch that movie, you know, and you look at the level of stress he's under, you know exactly what his power person did in order to avoid. And, you know, he left. It follows as night follows day, generation to generation to generation. And so, third one, projection. You know, that's a really simple one. You make me mad, you make me sad, you make me afraid. If there were messages that were given by a power person, then you'll tend to pass that on to others when you're under stress. You make me. There'll be that projection. Or the deflection can look like something like, well, you did that just last week, so don't talk to me about how I did it. So we refined that a little bit from the other day. And then, how did your power person? You want to detail how your power person went about achieving these goals. What kind of pressure was used to control, to avoid, to project, to deflect? And as you identify those things, you have a better chance of being able to look at your own unconscious dynamics in regard to that particular issue. Remember that quote so powerful from Carl Jung: until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives and we will call it fate. Once the unconscious becomes conscious, it no longer runs your life. So we're looking with this particular worksheet to dig into the deepest layers of that power person dynamic. So if your power person ever tried to control you, step B in this section is power person tried to control me, I felt. So how did you feel when your power person was trying to control you? And then ferret out what the thought is behind that feeling. Now, if it's projection, if one is stuck as the object of the power person trying to control, it's in projection, the thought will be something about them out there. But what we're really looking to do is get you to look inside and look at the thoughts that you're holding that creates your trauma or upset or disturbance in this situation. When my power person tried to avoid me or an issue, how did I feel? It might have been anger. And what was the thought? Gee, I never get listened to. My power person tried to project on me. How did it feel? If your power person was always in that blame game with you, and what was the thought behind it? The objective in touching into this depth of unconscious dynamic is that once you bring it to awareness, it loses its power over you. And then the last one, when my power person tried to deflect, what did you feel and what was the thought? And then in C, if your power person pulled any of those things on you, then you do them too. It's guaranteed. So you want to become conscious of when you want to control, avoid, project, or deflect. How do you manipulate into producing that result? How do you achieve that goal? So in this step, you want to, step C of step number 16, you want to look at how you use your mind to produce those goals. And the control, avoid, project, deflect, can also be pointed at self. So recognize it might be others and it might be self. Then step 17, what did I in general perceive my power person's need to be, or needs? So just make a list of all the needs that you thought that your power person had. It might be the need to control, the need to be in charge, the need to be on top, the need to look tough. It could be a whole myriad. It might be the need to look weak. Sometimes people, they go into weakness in order to control and manipulate others. So it can be a variety of things. You want to pinpoint precisely for yourself what the dynamic is so that you can deal with the underlying thought disorder. And step 18, if you look at your power person's needs, then what did your power person do to have those needs met? What was their behavior? Was their behavior just and fair? And if so, why was it just and fair, or why not? To look at those dynamics. And you want to look through each of the needs that you perceived your power person had. And then 19, have I ever, so now we're bringing ownership home instead of projection, have I ever exhibited any needs similar to my power person in my life? Now, virtually everybody says, I'm not going to be like my parent, my father, my mother. And the more somebody said that's not what they're going to do, guaranteed, the more they'll do it. So have you ever, the needs that you, especially the ones you found yourself seemingly disturbed by, that is, those needs when your power person tried to have them met, they brought up disturbance in you. Now, if you were in projection, if you followed your power person's pattern of projection, you went, yeah, well, it really disturbed me when they did that. Well, no, the disturbance was already in you. You've never been disturbed by anything that's ever happened in your life. It's just disturbance there. Once you grow into truth and you recognize, if I'm in a disturbed state, I'm in a disturbed state because there's disturbance in me, not because they did this or they did that or I did that or it's got nothing to, except that those things resonate. So we can put, if there's a disturbed state of any particular type in my mind, I can put it into my brain's image or anything and say, that's the cause. But that's denial and dissociating from the real cause. And when we dissociate from the real cause, it's unresolvable. So if you have seen yourself exhibiting any of those needs that your power person exhibited, what did you do to get those needs met? What behaviors did you do? Were the behaviors just and fair? So you're asking the same question as you asked about your power person. Were your behaviors in order to get this need or that one met just and fair? And if so, why not? Or if so, why? And then step 21. What did I think or feel that could have come up as a feeling? I feel like I had to do this, or the thought, I have to do this. I had to do to meet my power person's needs. So if one was in a situation where the stress was up and the chips are down, and one of the power person's needs were being exhibited, you want to be conscious of what your actions were when you were in the situation, thinking or feeling like you had to meet your power person's needs. Were the actions that you took to meet those needs based in love, or were they based in some form of fear or hostility? And then ask yourself the question, were they just and fair? Then into step 22. Did my power person punish me? Now, 6, there's a list of punishment type behaviors, or pardon me, step 6. So you might want to go back and just look through that list. We had several dozen of them, and just pick out what kind of punishments were done. So in step 22, I'm reminding myself of what punishments my power person used toward me. And if there was punishment, you want to detail specifically, step 23, specifically what the punishment was. How did I feel, and what was my emotional response to that punishment? So I've identified the punishments my power person did. Maybe it was hit me. What did I feel? What was my emotional response? Well, I might have felt hurt or sad or angry or afraid. So that would have been the emotional response I would detail. And then what thought disorders did I develop in response to that punishment? And a thought disorder in this case might be, having been punished by the power person, might be, well, I just deserved it. My power person, he or she told me I was a bad person and I was bad and I deserved to have been punished. And I'll tell you, over the years, I can't tell you how many people, when I start talking about punishment, one, their response is, no big deal that I was punished. I deserved it. Excuse me. No human being, no child has ever deserved to be punished for anything. No human being has ever deserved to be punished for anything. And you'll notice we live on the punishment planet. Virtually everybody's response to everything that they project is somebody else's fault or something they've done that they are in blame with themselves for somehow or other, and this was a survey we did in the prison system when we did the main project there with the Judicial Service Agency in Albany, Georgia, was the majority of inmates felt like they deserved the punishment they were receiving. And it's a lie. Well, Michael, if you didn't punish people who do, let's say, dangerous things in the community, well, how are you going to control society? Well, how about you build a jail? Well, that's punishment. Well, unfortunately, they are called penal institutions and they have been used for punishment, but they don't have to be. Yes, if someone is not safe in the community, then yes, they need to be removed from the community, but that doesn't mean they need to be punished. Hurting people are the ones who hurt people. What we need, because if you take a hurting person who's hurt someone and you hurt them more, what have you just done? You just exacerbated the whole dynamic and made sure it's permanent. And it sure is looking pretty permanent on the planet right now, isn't it? What if instead of punishment, yes, this person is not safe in the community, they need to be isolated from the community. So yeah, we're going to build a building with a set of bars and we're going to bring them healing instead of punishment. Whoa, what a radical idea. We're actually going to begin to teach these people who they are as love and treat them lovingly, gently, and with respect. Well, what about the murderer? If I treated them lovingly, well, they might need to be put in a cell and restrained, but that doesn't mean that I need to be, if I'm the jailer, I need to be punishing them. If you've seen the film Shawshank Redemption, then you can see the insanity of how the jailers are no different and certainly no better than the inmates in many cases. I've worked in many jails over the years where, the people who were running the jail, I remember one couple in particular in Coldwater, Michigan. I went in there and did a 6-week series of workshops, and there was a couple, they were married, and the gentleman and I mean the gentleman, use the word gentleman very consciously as a word for him. He was the intake officer for everybody that came into the prison. And everybody got a worksheet. Everybody got an explanation of the worksheet, and everybody was told where the book was and that they would be there to support them. His wife worked as a support person, teaching people forgiveness in that prison system. So once again, there's a lie on the planet. The people who do quote unquote bad things deserve to be punished. Lie. Absolute total lie. Restrained perhaps, separated from the culture perhaps, punishment is never in order. And I've had people who've said, well, my father beat me, but I deserved it and it never hurt me. Look at my life. I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, you mean with the kid that's doing drugs and almost committed suicide last week? Oh, you mean with the raging abuse you had with your wife that you got a restraining order put against you? That sort of thing? Is that what you're talking about? Oh, so it didn't bother you at all that you got punished? Oh, no, you're just passing on a power person dynamic. Nobody ever deserved that. So in this case, if punishment was there, what we want to do is look at what were the thought disorders that I developed in response to that punishment. So that thought disorder might be, I deserved it. And that would be a place to do worksheets to get rid of that insane thought, because no one ever has deserved it. So step 24 goes to the next step, and remember, or the next stage, remember the first line in the worksheet: to become the thinker apart from the thought, the feeler apart from the feelings, the actor apart from the actions. That's the objective here, is to be able to step back. Rather than being on automatic pilot with whatever your mind prompts you to, you step back and you make choices about what it is that you're going to do. So now I'm going to ask myself the question, have I ever done any of the behaviors, including punishment, that I observed my power person using get me to achieve the goals they had for me. All punishment is an effort to get someone to stop doing what it is that one has not corrected within themselves and to force them to achieve a goal that someone has for them. It comes from hostility and fear. It voids the presence of human life. The objective of this work is to restore you to your human life. How do you tell what a human life is? Have you ever held a newborn baby? Just tap into the essence of that newborn. Now you know exactly what human life is. Now you know exactly who you are and what you're designed for. What do you need to forgive in you in order to free yourself of those dynamics of punishment? So, what do I observe my power person doing to force me to achieve the goals they had for me? Who did I do it to? Or who am I perhaps still doing it to? How did it feel in my body when I did those behaviors? So if I find myself replicating any of the behaviors of my power person, stop and just pay attention when you do that, how it feels in your own energy field. How do you suppose it felt for the person who was the object of those behaviors? You know how it felt in your body. How do you suppose it felt for them? And then this step, we're inviting you to write a paragraph about each occurrence where you've done the behaviors, punishment or whatever, that your power person did to force you into achieving goals they held for you. And that's step 24. And step 25. So I've made a list of my power person's needs. What did I perceive I had to give up in order to meet my power person's needs? And that could be a wide range of things. That could be anything from, well, geez, I had to give myself up. I had to give up, how many people have you heard of it? Well, I never had a childhood. I had to give up my childhood. So just stepping back, observing, and what did you perceive you had to give up in order to meet your power person's needs? Step 25. Now, looking at this idea of needs, did my power person, just looking back in your mind, and if your power person is still alive and in your life, did they ever block, ignore, or prevent their own needs from being met? And if so, how did they do it? An example of that might be, you know, someone blocking, ignoring, preventing their own needs from being met might look like self-abuse or self-neglect. And so just observe whether or not your power person did that. And then, of course, the next step is going to be, have I ever blocked my power person's needs from being met? So that might have looked like being non-cooperative, might have looked like being neglectful of your power person. Maybe there was a time where you became the caretaker of your power person and neglect was the response. And this is just about observing and looking at the kinds of energetic patterns we've engaged in with the objective of getting free of them, with the objective of being done with them. And then I'm going to ask myself the question, have I ever blocked, ignored, or prevented my needs from being met? I.e., not taking care of myself. Did my behavior ever match what my power person did in terms of blocking their own needs? So you want to detail how you've blocked, ignored, or prevented your own needs from being met. And then I want to look at the people in my world. Have I ever blocked, ignored, or prevented another's needs from being met. You know, maybe in the office, there was someone who was, new in the office and feeling kind of skittish. And I knew that they needed support to feel comfortable, but I ignored their needs. If so, how did you do that? What did you do? And this is kind of tapping into oftentimes a way to get the back door into what your power person's behavior is when you're under extreme stress, what do you do? Remember, we can have several different power persons in our lives. The way you determine in any given situation who your power person is in that situation is you look at when you're ultra stressed, whose behavior do you do in that ultra stress state? And breathe. Now, if you were raised in a codependent household, what were the rules you perceived you needed to follow? Were those rules reasonable? Going back to that standard of just and fair. And how do you tell if you were raised in a codependent household? If you ever heard the words, "you made me," you're in a codependent household. Whenever someone communicates to you that you are the reason they're experiencing what's going on inside of them, you've got someone who's in denial and dissociation. Someone who does not have the ability to even see what's going on behind the scenes. Remember our definition of codependence, it's the same as our definition of denial. When I think or speak as though someone or something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me, I'm in denial. I dissociate from the causes in my own mind, and now I've got somebody to blame. Whenever I'm speaking language of blame, I am clearly in codependence. So if you ever heard in your household, "you made me," the household was codependent. And all of these dynamics ultimately need to be unfolded to live a truly conscious life. Then to step 30, let's see, 31, 32. 32, what have we got? My definition of love, and I've got that word in quotes and it's lowercase. Remember the only true definition of the word love, hold the newborn child, tap into the essence of newborn, and you know exactly what love is. But the culture has us living in a whole different world. So you want to identify in step 32 what your definition of love was when functioning out of the power person dynamic. So if you're interacting with your power person, what did love mean? So if I'm interacting with an abusive power person, my definition of love might be love is staying quiet in order not to be hit. So I want to identify what that is, because what will happen in relationship is if I never resolve that, even though that definition of love might be traumatic, if I'm in a relationship with someone and they won't serve up that traumatic thing, I will never be able to feel loved in that case. In the culture's misappropriation of the word love, i.e., you know, I'm going to sacrifice myself and put my head on the chopping block in order to prove I love you, or sexual athletics, or all the crazy things that love is defined as in our culture. So, what kind of definitions? What kind of false definitions? We're going to reserve the word love to represent the state of a human life. Each of us has a human life. We may have lost contact with it a long time ago. We may drop into contact with it and lose it, and drop in and lose it. And we will tend to create codependent relationships where I can blame somebody else for the fact that I've lost contact with the presence of love in me. So we want to look at what are the thought disorders. So in this case, love is staying quiet in order not to be hit. Might be someone's definition of love. Well, that's going to be really screwy when that person goes into a relationship, becomes an adult, moves into a relationship. And then, so you've looked at the early life, at your power person dynamic and what love meant to you, and how has that definition of love played out in your relationships, step 33. So that might look like, oh, now I see why my partner was always think I was mad, because I was always so quiet. I thought that's what love meant. So I was quiet. And they kept accusing me of being mad. I was never mad. I never understood what was going on there. What that was crazy. Yeah. When we come up with those errant definitions, that's what happens. Way back as far as Plato, Plato said, let me define the words and we'll end the argument. A great deal of argument, of conflict, happens over the fact that two different people have different definitions of the same words. And that becomes the root of conflict. So if you can see that you had any aberrant definitions of love that were off the mark, that did not, where the word did not mean my human life, then look at how that played out in your relationships and in your behavior. Clean it up. Did it create any crazy behaviors? And recognize that the tendency will be for people to come together through their matching bags of garbage. So the person who's, I don't deserve to be spoken to, and I'm rejected if people don't speak to me, will be attracted to this person who was quiet in order not to be hit. They've got the perfect matching bags of garbage. And when they come up, if they're in codependent relationship, each one will be standing there pointing the finger at their partner. Look what you're doing to me, because that's what's happening inside of my mind in the presence of you. And if I hook that issue up to my brain's image of you, then forevermore, because of a thing called the file folder effect, one of the ways the mind functions, that's always going to end up being a problem in relationship until I clean it out. And if your power person, if you're in a relationship with someone and you put them into your power person file, do the kindness of doing whatever it takes to let them out. It's a big deal to let someone out of your power person file once they're locked in. It takes some really deep, committed work and the really sincere use of the tools. And I again apologize, just looking at the comments, I can see that there is a comment, but my app, I actually unloaded it and reloaded it, and there's still a problem with the app. So I apologize that I can't see what the comments are or respond to them. So how did that play out in my relationship with them? Now here's one that can be a bit of a hammer. Step 34. Ask your partner to describe your power person dynamic. and be willing to just hear them, just receive it. Doesn't mean it's true. Just watch what happens in your mind and receive it and see what you learn from it. So that's step 34. And then at this point, the last step in the process, and I'm thinking I will probably maybe add a little more to it on getting out of the power person, letting this person out of your power person file once they're there. So that it may grow beyond that, but it hasn't happened yet. But the final step at this point in the worksheet is step 35, and it's entitled Rediscovering You. Most codependents give themselves up in their relationships. So this step is about recovering the truth of who you are, recovering yourself. And so the invitation here is to make a list of 50 things you enjoy doing. So step 35, recovering you. 50 things you enjoy doing. Read it every day and detail how you're going to integrate doing those things in your life. Now, if you're a codependent, this is going to be a challenging list. And so what I suggest you do is be open to creativity and discovery about yourself. Literally make a list, and it might take some time to do it. But there's a room on the sheet for the 50 things that you enjoy doing and detailing how you're going to integrate those things into your life. How are you going to make space for it? And your mind might say, well, but I'm so busy being codependent and taking care of my codependent issues. Yeah. No, this is an invitation to rediscover yourself and bring your true being into your relationship and into your own life. And so that is our Codependence to Interdependence Power Person Worksheet. And unfortunately, once again, I cannot open the comment section. And I think, or I suspect from the last day or two that if someone puts a hand up, I unfortunately won't be able to open it. My apology. But if you have, Jeannie, are you on with us, sweetie? We've got Lincoln and Aria today. Actually, this morning we went to the dinosaur museum where they had a dinosaur Easter egg hunt, searching for dinosaur eggs. So we had a fun morning with them. And I'm assuming, since I'm not hearing from Jeannie, that she is not on. So I'm going to apologize that I can't answer anybody's questions because I can't see your comments. There is a defect in the app. We're still working. The app is still pretty young and it's being continuously overhauled. And my apology. Oh, here's Jeannie. Oh, that's Aria. Hey, sweetie.
It is on.
Right.
You didn't answer her call.
Okay. Well, tell her that I can't see her call, so I can't answer her call, and I can't see what the comments are. So maybe she could come up and share with me what those comments are, if there are any that we need to know about. But at the moment, we have a challenge with the app, so I apologize for that. We are in deep appreciation to Needle Studios for creating this app and giving us the space to be on it. It's really, I've had feedback from lots of people who are listening to the archives that the sound is much better than it was when we were on Blog Talk. And the fact that anybody in the world can get on and, when it's working properly, make comments that I can read and also make calls. So it's awesome that we're here and working.
So Carrie wanted to know what sheet you were reading from.
Okay, I'm going to finish this app today, and or pardon me, this worksheet. I've been editing it as we've been doing it, and I will, as soon as it's complete, Carrie, I will send you a copy, and Jeannie will be posting it under the Codependence section, and we'll put a link in the notes as well.
And then Carrie Kirsten said, I can look back also and see how stressed my parents, power persons were.
Yeah, that goes back. So someone made the comment they could see how stressed their power persons were. Yeah, it's generational. It's been going on forever. Another powerful quote from Carl Jung is the magnitude of the burden, the child carrying the burden of the parent's unlived life, which is pretty powerful to start to look at how those dynamics get played out. You go back into the scriptures and they said, look to the lives of the fathers. And of course, that's not being sexist as males, it's parents. For ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. Most people are just living out the shadow of the parental dynamic. You look at that idea of sin, and the word sin in Aramaic was an archery term that meant off the mark. And they said the sins of the fathers, mothers, will be passed to 3 and 4 generations. And you look at that. So any unresolved rage, guilt, fear, drama, or trauma that one generation experiences, if they have no tools and they have no idea how to resolve that dynamic, then energetically, and we're talking literally through what they call epigenetics, that unresolved energetic pattern is passed to the next generation, and then the behaviors played out by the power person simply reinforce it. You look at that story of the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years, and that was not a story about being lost in a hot, sandy place. It was not a story about this 35 square mile desert place. If you look at that passage, what had to happen in order to get out of what they called the desert? And that word desert there is a code word for the unconscious. What did they say had to happen? They said the old generation had to die off. Now, that didn't mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. The root of the word generation is genari, which means cause. All of the causes held in the genes, which are part of the mind of man, carbon-based memory, all of the causes held there had to be forgiven. Otherwise, we would live in the desert, in the unconscious dynamic of that particular issue. So these things are generationally passed on time and time and time again. And of course, each time they're passed on, what happens? When you think of it in terms of energy, they are energetically intensified. And so what's intensified gets expressed generation upon generation. And if you happen to be the first one who could wake up to this conversation, the first one in your bloodline who could say, I'm not functioning as love, and I'm going to stop blaming my children or the people around me for the fact that I'm not doing that, and I'm going to take responsibility. Like, for most family systems, that's like such a radically outrageous thought that most parents could never conceive of it because they live inside of a whole belief system, culturally installed family culture, broader human culture, community culture, and those cultures install those beliefs in a mind, and they tend to simply play out. When we enter into relationship, if a person that you're in relationship with violates an important goal that you held for your power person, okay? So you had an important goal that you held for your power person. If they violate that goal, that will instantly link you into their Power Person file. Remember the file folder effect? We haven't talked about that for a while. But let's remember the file folder effect. Two files that fire together wire together. Now, I'm going to demonstrate the file folder effect. If you've never heard me, this is sort of a standard example that I use. You've probably heard me use it before if you've been around this work a while. But if you haven't, there are two files in your mind that I know you have brain cells for. Everyone in this culture does. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to wire them together in your mind. And you say, well, Michael, I'm not going to allow that. You don't have any choice. Now, you could hang up the phone and I wouldn't be able to do it. But if you're going to stay listening to this conversation, when I finish this example, these two files, which, unless you've heard this example before, have probably never been hooked together in your mind, those two files are going to be wired together permanently. Here's my example. I know you have brain cells for the color purple, and I know you have brain cells for an alligator. Don't think about a purple alligator. Now, when those two files fire together, they are now wired together. If I opened the radio show tomorrow and I started out and said, don't think about a purple, what would fire instantly in your brain cell structure? They're wired. They're now linked. The neural structures in the mind are linked together. And once they're linked, unless we can process out the energy that links them, they're going to run the show. If 25 years from now, you are still listening to the radio show every day, which I hope you will be, and I said, and this is the first time I've done it in the 25 years, and you were listening, and I said, don't think about a purple, what would fire in your mind? Well, most people would say, well, I have no idea. Well, yeah, probably. Remember, energy decays away with time, the power of it, the amplitude of it. So, yes, if I said tomorrow, don't think about a purple, alligator would fire in your mind instantly because it's fresh. The amplitude is there. 25 years from now, because of time, that energy not having been reinforced will have decayed away so far that it's gone, or so you think. But here's my promise to you. If 25 years from now I said, don't think about a purple, alligator would still fire in your mind, although it wouldn't be at an intensity, it wouldn't be at an amplitude where you would probably recall it. It might be, but it probably wouldn't be. But the energy of that idea of an alligator moving in your mind would still be moving in your mind 25 years from now, and it would impact the end result output or the perception that your mind creates. Everything that's ever happened in the power person dynamic is stored, and it can be something that happened when I was 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and I have no recall of it whatsoever. And then here I am 30 years later in a marriage where we came together when we were so quote unquote in love, and then one day we said the honeymoon is over. And what is it that creates that twist in the gut? What is it that creates that disturbance when my power person says a certain word, or maybe he does something my partner, because I've linked them into my power person file, just turns their head the right way? Why is there that vague feeling of pain or disturbance, or I can't even put my finger on it. What is it? It's that old dynamic in the mind still resonating, and that I have not yet touched into and corrected. The objective of this worksheet is to get down to the depth where you can undo all of that, no matter how many generations back it goes, and free yourself of it. And I'm seeing a number of comments being made, but Jeannie, I still can't see them. If any of those comments you'd like to share with me so I can address them. So get that, once an energy is set in a mind and linked to anything, then whenever any relating energy moves, that old energy is also going to move.
Somebody had asked what evil meant in Aramaic, and Jamuna had answered, but you might want to address it.
Oh, great. Thank you, Jamuna. Appreciate that. But yeah, evil relates to, and I can't see your answer, Jamuna, so I'll just fill it in. Evil relates to the word sin in Aramaic, Actually, there are two definitions of the word evil. One of them would be more properly spoken as unripened. So if I have a banana that's green, dark green, I would properly in Aramaic call that banana evil. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the banana, it's just not ripe yet. If it's at the peak, it's just that nice shining yellow, a couple of little brown spots, it's ripe. I could no longer call that banana evil. But if I left that banana alone for another week and it's all brown and squishy and squashing in on itself, that banana is now evil again. So that's one meaning of the word evil. The second meaning of the word evil, and this is the one that relates to sin, is it's also an archery term. If I'm on the archery range and I fire at the target and I miss the bullseye, the scorekeeper yells sin. I've missed, I'm off the mark. That's all that word means in Aramaic. If I fired at the target and I missed the target altogether, then the scorekeeper would use the term evil. I've missed the target altogether. And so when a human being is not functioning out of and as the presence of love, in Aramaic, they would probably be called evil. Nothing to do with the Greek, the evil creatures, all the hallucinations of the Greek mind, of the fear-based mind that has personalized and made all these things that in Aramaic spoke of internal conditions. The Greeks turned them into monsters out there. They've got paintings and, all kinds of crazy stories about all these external forces. That's all bunk. These forces are internal. We're talking about yes, the mind makes it up to be some sort of a demon that's out there, but a demon in Aramaic refers to a state of mind in an individual, an unresolved energy that goes against that person functioning as a human being. And the objective of this work is to support each person in working through and forgiving, not letting them off the hook, but forgiving their demons, realizing that the word forgive means to remove. So when I remove every untoward energy in me, when I remove every quote unquote sin, every energy that's off the mark, freed of sin, I cannot experience a conceivable thing as demon when I've resolved what's going on inside of my own mind.